Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to this capacity building session organized by MedCities. This one is one of the four thematic module sessions that MedCities is organizing, and this one is, as you know, on waste management. I would like to thank you all for being here, and I would like to welcome to our Secretary General from MedCities, Mr. Josep Canals, who is also biologist, ecologist, and urban planner. Mr. Josep, whenever you want.
Thank you very much, Gemma. Bon dia, sabah al-khair. Bonjour, good morning, good afternoon. Thank you very much for being here. Some of you we might met last Tuesday, but some of you don't, because there are different people from the same municipalities attending to the different areas. So, but I would like to thank you very much for being here, for having the interest of learning something, or maybe hear something, or maybe hear what's happening on the trends on waste management today. What are the main trends, of what are the successes and the mistakes that others maybe have committed? And this is one of the main reasons of the very existence of MedCities, les raisons d'être. This is what we are needed for you, the members, to be useful for our members. Is the biggest complaint, the biggest gift that we could receive from you, as these sessions are useful. I would like to thank also Gemma Torres, our senior officer. Thank you very much for your incredible work for leading this process. And I think this is the first time that MedCities address general cycle sessions to all of the members of MedCities. During our history, we've been doing peer-to-peer or bilateral, or some projects for some members. This is the first time that we are doing a training, capacitating cycle of sessions for all the members. So you are very welcome. And you might, I think that you might know that, you have to know that this is a reaction to a question that was raised by all the mayors, your mayors, in the last General Assembly in 2019, and where they said, we need you, our association, to help us in improving our skills on the main challenges that we face in our cities, which are mobility, which are energy, which are, as today's session, waste management. So this is why we are here, to respond to that demand of our mayors. And also, for me, this is important, these sessions, because it gives us a sense of internal cohesion among our association. It's very important that we know each other, and maybe from these sessions onward, there will be more bilateral contacts on how do you do that, how do you do the other thing. So as a Secretary General, I'm very content to have these sessions. And today, the other day was environmental management, today is waste management. I've been working on waste management for many years in my professional life, so I know how sensitive it is, how important it is for the consequences to the climate change. It's one of the causes of the greenhouse emissions in methane, for example, if we don't treat correctly our organic matter. So it's very important, and it's all very sensitive for the citizens. We know there is some phenomena, I don't know this in front of my house, but we have to face that, and we will, hopefully, you will learn a lot from this session. So thank you very much for being here again. Thank you to Fundación End for providing out their technical expertise, and I hope that this cycle session will be very, very useful and fruitful to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Gemma. Thank you, Pep. We are about to start with the presentations, but prior to the first presentation, I would like to ask you, everybody, all participants, to provide us, with your insights on which are the main challenges and concerns about waste management in your municipality. We are going to collect these concerns in order to better fit the next two sessions. So today's session is about solving things. The next two sessions will be about sharing a little bit more. So we would like to know what is concerning you in your municipality regarding waste management. I will remind you to write this on the chat to have at some point in your screen. And thank you very much. Without further delay, I would like to present to Veronica Martinez, who will talk about a general framework on waste production and prevention in the Mediterranean. So thank you very much, Veronica. The floor is yours.
Okay. Hello, everybody, and thank you, Sergio, for the introduction. Yes, today I'm gonna try to give you an overview of the general framework on waste management, and also I hope it can help you to introduce the topic and the next and the following presentations. So I will try to introduce you to the wide topic of the environmental impact assessment of waste management, the waste hierarchy, the importance of waste prevention, main opportunities and main challenges in the Mediterranean region, as well as some potential actions to overcome these challenges. And then I will conclude my presentation with some really few final remarks. Yes, just to start, I would like to start with the definition. What is municipal solid waste? Because this, depending on the territory where you are, it can include some waste stream or others. So here you can see the definition used in the European Waste Framework Directive, and then there it defines the waste management. It includes household waste and waste from retail, small businesses, office buildings and institutions, similar in nature and composition to household waste, collected by or on behalf of municipalities. So then, depending on who has the competencies on the collection, it will include some waste streams or others. Then we have said what it is and how much we are producing. Here I would like to give you an overview of the amount that we are generating. I apologize because the figure that I found, the first one on municipal waste in Med countries, it's a bit old, it's from 2016, but it's just to show you, give you an overview of it. And then on the other side, we can see the municipal waste generated in different European countries. We can see that in Europe, the average is around 500 kilograms per inhabitant per year. Then we can see that in Italy and Spain, they are around the average. And then in other Mediterranean countries like Algeria, Egypt, Lebanon, Morocco, they are quite below the European average. And then also, if we see in the European countries, even if the average is on 500, we can see that there are quite many countries that are well above this average, and also some countries like, for example, Romania or Poland that are quite below this average. Then if we say what there is in this waste, taking the common waste fractions that are included in the municipal solid waste, we can see that there is some metals, paper, plastic, glass, organic matter, and other. As we can see here, the main fraction, the most important fraction that we normally found in municipal solid waste is the bio waste or the organic waste. Here we can see that in most of the countries that we show in the graph, they are quite above 50%, it's 50 or even larger. And it's also the case of many maybe in Southern European countries from the EU. You can see here in the table that there are few countries with less than 20% of bio-waste in their municipal solid waste. And yes, Italy, it's between 30 and 40. Then we can see that this is an important fraction because this composition is based on weight. Then the organic fraction it's quite it contains a lot of water, and this it's one of the is really heavy, this fraction. Let's say it has a high density. When we generate waste, we can have the idea that we generate more, for example, plastic packaging, but this we cannot see it so important in the composition because it's lighter, let's say. Then, as a solid waste management system, I would like to say that it includes many. It's from the many different stages. From the waste generation, that is okay, which is the activity that generates the waste. Then we have the waste source separation. How is the person or the generator separating this at home or in the place where the waste is generated? Then we have the collection to the treatment facility, and then we have the final disposal. In between this treatment and disposal, there's also transportation. If we look at this as a system, from source separation until final disposal is a system that consumes many resources, energy, materials, and water resources, but also has important emissions to air, to water, and soil. But then over the last long time ago, it became so it passed from it's a simple. So waste management was supposed to provide a safe disposal of the waste to avoid health issues and environmental, I guess, problems. But then it became later on a resource recovery sector, because as the waste has a lot of material and energy contained, let's say, then the sector become this a resource recovery sector. And then we have to say the system of the solid waste management system. We cannot see it as an isolated system at the end of the life of the products, but we have to see it also connected to the production sector and the energy sector through the recovery of material and energy that was contained in the waste. So when we are looking into the environmental impacts of municipal solid waste system, it's important to consider the overall picture. Also the connection between them, because the connection between the collection and the recycling facility, etc. And also consider the connection to the primary production and the energy system. Then when you see, if you do a study on environmental impacts of solid waste, you will see that the waste system itself, so all the stages, will have a part of impacts, and then through the recovery of resources, we are avoiding the production of material and energy from virgin sources. So if we produce, for example, if we recycle paper, we will avoid to produce part of paper from virgin materials, no? And it's important to take into account this avoiding as savings onto the environment, because without this recovery, there will be this extra consumption. Then life cycle assessment is one method to evaluate the environmental impacts of a product or a service. This method it has been standardized by these two ISO standards, and what it does is to quantify the environmental impacts of a product or a service, considering the whole life cycle of the product. So from raw material until disposal, and if there is some recycling, no? Then normally, when we do a life cycle assessment of a common product or a service, the system boundaries that we use is from the raw material to the waste management. As you can see here in this figure, there are 1, 2, 3 end products, and then we will compare the impacts, so related to the emissions and the resource consumptions of these end products, and consider all the life cycle of these products. But when we look into waste management system, what it often we see is that the system boundaries of the study is focused in the waste management. We take for granted the waste generated, and we think, okay, which is the best way to treat, to handle this waste, assuming that we as waste managers or yes, operators, we cannot do anything with the waste. This approach is called zero burden approach, and can be applied when all the scenarios or all the alternatives that we are comparing in waste management system, they have the same amount of waste generation. This, for example, cannot be applied when we are talking about prevention, because when we do some prevention, we are avoiding some production of the products. And then the scenario that we are comparing, it won't have the same generation, so we will have to model upstream like this. Then if you are interested on LCA on waste system, I would recommend you to follow this EastTech. You can use this tool and they provide you with there's a lot of publication on LCA on municipal solid waste. Also, on life cycle assessment of municipal solid waste, I would like to say that when using LCA in waste system, we will never have one single best solution applicable to all territories. And this is because we have to consider local conditions, and due to this link to production and energy sectors, the same waste management system will give different results in terms of environmental impacts depending on the location. You can see this in this figure. Is also it's based in 2010, so the numbers, they maybe they have changed quite a lot, but I just wanted to show the idea that here we can see a common results on an LCA and the category of climate change. I didn't say this, but in LCA, what we convert emissions and resource consumption and add them up, and then we end up with a list of impacts in different impact categories. One category is climate change, another can be eutrophication. Here in this graph, there are the results of climate change. Let's say in the unit, as you can see in the vertical axis, is kilograms of CO2 equivalents per ton of municipal solid waste handled in these 6 countries. Then you can see that there are loads into the environment that are these positive values, also above the horizontal axis, and then we have negative values. What do they mean? The positive values means, with positive sign, means loads into the environment. Here we can see the transportation, also incineration in France, or landfill in Greece, they have, or in Portugal, they have an environmental load. So it's a net emission. These activities emit to the environment. Then on the negative values, we have savings into the environment. These relate to the avoided production that I was mentioned before, is the connection of the waste management system and the production and energy sector. Here we can see, for example, if we look at the 3 columns of Denmark, we can see in the savings a blue bar, that is the savings related to the avoided production of materials, that is the recycling or composting. Then we have also a bar that is the brown one, that is the avoided production of energy from marginal, from fossil, from the energy sector. You see, and here you can see that depending, so in the 3 bars of Denmark, we can see there are the assumption of the energy system that we are substituting. When the waste management system produce energy, then we are substituting the production of energy from the energy sector. If this energy sector is the average, we will have the first savings. But if we have the substitution of coal based energy, we will have more benefits into the environment related to the incineration of waste. This means that if we think the future going towards more greener energy production, the benefits into the environment related to the energy recovery from waste will be lower, because what we are going to substitute will be cleaner. Then you can see, for example, in Greece, that they don't have their waste management system, at least by 2010, there was no much energy recovery. Then you can see that regardless of the waste mix, the energy mix that we are substituting, the performance of the waste management system will have the same impact. So here, what I would like to tell you is that the environmental impact of waste management depends quite a lot on the energy mix that we are substituting when there is energy recovery. Also, an important thing that I would like to mention is that when we do LCA or other tools, they're only meant to support the decision maker, and then we will see different results. So, for example, if you do an LCA, it can be that one option is better than the other in climate change, but worse in eutrophication, and it will be the decision maker, the one that will decide at the end which is the best option. Here, I just want to show you one result on the greenhouse gas emissions from municipal solid waste in EU. Just again, we can see the loads and the savings, and the positive message of this figure is that the red bar, the red light that you can see is the net, so it's loads minus savings, and we can see that little by little we reduce the total emission into the environment related to the municipal solid waste management. Then moving to the next, the second part of the presentation, I would like to tell you about the waste hierarchy. This is again one concept that appears in the EU regulation, but I think it can be applicable to also countries outside the EU. It's just established an order of preference for more sustainable waste management. There it says that the first priority should go into the prevention of this waste. Then the second will be into preparing for reuse. The third, recycling, energy recovery, and once we cannot do anything else, we will landfill this waste. This waste hierarchy is really useful as a guidelines, but also to target, as I said, resource efficiency in each territory. We have to consider local consideration and break-even points. Let's say, for example, if the recycling of one waste, it will require, for example, long distances or a lot of energy consumption for the recycling, for the sorting or for the recycling itself. Maybe we should consider other alternatives, even if this goes in a lower priority in the hierarchy. For these even points and to consider local consideration, it's important tools like LCA that provide this environmental assessment of the alternatives. Then let's go into the first priority of this waste hierarchy. And in Spanish we would say el mejor residuo es el que no se genera. In English it would be the best waste is the one that is not generated, no? And it's kind of, it's a truth, no? It's like we also we can say what is best to do with a waste that is given, but for sure the best thing is if you don't have this waste to handle. Then again, with the definition in the Waste Framework Directive, prevention is defined as measures taken before a substance, material, or product has become waste that reduce the quantity of waste, including that reduce the quantity of waste, and also it can reduce the adverse impact or the content of harmful substance in the product. So it's not only a matter of reducing the amount of waste, let's say kilograms of food waste. It's also about reducing the what we, for example, what does which toxic substance contains, for example, plastic waste. You know, it's not only kilograms of waste, it's other. Reducing the harmful content of this substance is also considered prevention. Prevention measures should contribute to decoupling economic growth and the environmental impact associated with the waste generation. I don't know if you have realized, I guess you know, but in one of the first graphs that they've shown with the waste generation, the countries in EU with higher waste generation are also ones of the richest, or let's say countries with higher income. So this prevention should contribute to this decoupling. Okay, if it's possible to have economic growth while without increasing the waste generation. Then EU member states are also, in addition, they have to provide waste management plan, but in addition, they were obliged to draw some national waste prevention programs by 2013 following sub-guidance. And then the European Environmental Agency review the progress. And from these reports of the progress, I think that we can draw some interesting outcomes. Here you can see, this is one of the figures of one figure of one of these status. And again, this figure is supposed to represent prevention. So, and all the prevention action that you can take in the life cycle of a product, no, starting from the extraction and manufacturing, transport, distribution. So there is prevention in all single stages of a product life cycle. So then we have to see prevention not as a responsibility of a waste manager. It's something that should go above, and the actions for prevention should come from the beginning of the product. Some examples of preventions, there are many, and here I only want to say something. It could be from general promoting eco-design, promoting collaborative approaches for reuse, promoting sharing economy. Why do we have to own so many equipments that we only use once a year, for example, for a drill, or once twice a week for a laundry machine, no? Then train for being able to repair bikes and equipment and electronic equipment to avoid their wastage. There are many. I'm not going to go into all of them. For example, for packaging, there are taxes or charges on the use of single-use plastic bags or on non-refillable packaging. You can see many examples around the world, but they are still really minor compared to the potential of these actions. Now, if they were implemented in many other places, the potential of this will be much higher, of these measures. Then, what are the opportunities if we work in the improvement, if we invest in an environmentally better waste management system? This can be other, of course, it will bring better environment and lower emission, but it will also bring more employment and specifically local employment. And also it will help and improve the access to raw material, reducing the supply risk, because if we are able to recover some of the materials and put it back in the local economy, then we won't depend from importations. It will also can bring economic savings and reduction of marine and terrestrial litter. And for sure, if we improve the situation of the waste management, it will also help to have a better perception of citizens of the solid waste management, that is often seen as something dirty, and it could be changed to something that is valuable. Hopefully it's going in towards this direction.
So Rivero, you have only a few minutes left.
Okay, I will go fast, sorry. Then to end up, we have still some challenges. For example, the low and insufficient effort on prevention. You can see here is the waste generation of different countries, and you can, in none of them, there is a downward trend. This means that the generation is not going down. So this is a generation per capita, so there's not really prevention itself. Then the difficulty of measuring, there's also challenging on measuring the prevention. There are few indicators, even if there are waste prevention programs, there are not quantitative targets, and you can see this difference. So we can see the programs, the coverage of the programs provided by the different countries, and the few indicators that there are. So many of the areas that are covered, they don't have a quantitative target. Then also prevention, even if it has high priority, the budget dedicated to it is really low, and is also working with prevention is also challenged by the fact that it requires the collaboration of actors from across the life cycle of a product or a system. Then we still have a low and insufficient recycling rate. We can see here that it's also a positive measure that we are growing the recycling rates, but there's still quite a lot of effort to be done. Here I would like to say that it's important to differentiate between recycling and collected to be recycled. And by now, many of the statistics are saying recycling, but in reality is amount being source separated for being recycled. We have to differentiate this concept. Also, it's different to have open loop recycling and to have closed loop recycling. I mean, one bottle can become another bottle, while if we convert it to something like furniture, is a lower value recycling. We have to be aware, and also to increase recycling rates, it's important to work on the collection, because it's something that will limit the quality and the quantity going to recycling.
1 minute left, Vero.
1 minute left, okay. Marine litter, I guess you all know about this problem. I'm not going to give these figures, but it's indeed a serious, it can have a serious economic damage, but also a health threat. And then what can we do? There's a toolkit. No, we have this challenge. What we have regulatory instruments, targets, laws, and banning some process and products. Then we have informative instruments, awareness campaigns, dissemination of capacity building. We have economic incentive, pay as you throw, taxes on products, and also public expenditure. It's kind of obvious, but if we want to improve the waste management, we need to invest on collection and treatment. All these toolkits need a coordinated governance, political will, involvement of the civil society, also co-responsibility. It's not enough to throw the waste in the right bin. We also need to pay for the waste that we generate, and this also applies for the producer. Final remarks. I would like to remind you the waste prevention, waste hierarchy. And if we want to prevent, we need ambitious prevention targets and monitoring strategies, and also use the potential of all the tools that we have. For recycling, we need to improve the collection, both in the quantity and the quality, boost the market of secondary materials, and restrict the use of incineration and landfill to non-recyclable waste. Sorry for the time. That's all.
Thank you, Veronica. We will be taking one question if there is something that needs to be to some kind of I don't know, to make anything clear, if there is anything. Otherwise, we will go to the next presentation. Can you please stop sharing your presentation?
Mm-hmm.
If there is any question, we can take it now. Okay, I don't see any hand up, so we will go with the next presentation, which is from Francesco Lembo from ACR Plus. You ready, Francesco?
Yes, I'm ready.
The floor is yours then. Thank you very much.
Thanks to you.
I will let you know when you have 5 minutes left.
Okay. And let me know if you can see the presentation on my screen.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, thanks to all of you for inviting us to these training sessions. First of all, because I want to introduce this intervention by saying that it feels nice to feeling at home with a like-minded organization. I'm Francesco Lembo, Managing Director at ACR Plus. The acronym stands for Associations of Cities and Regions for Sustainable Resource Management. We are an international network of local authorities pushing forward our members through peer-to-peer mechanism on environmental or improving environmental performances on sustainable resource management and the circular economy. So this is very well fitting with our normal current activities. This is a bit the index of what we are going through in the next 15 minutes, and while we will focus on green public procurement and on circular public procurement, I think that we have all good premises were set during the previous presentation, and especially we have two nice hooks coming. One from the comments we had on the chat from Mohammed Shiawi. So one of the key challenges we are facing on waste prevention policies is the absence of general vision. And also thanks to Veronica when she mentioned in the last challenge how waste prevention needs and required for integrated actions and implication of waste prevention policies. They are not only part of environmental policies, they fall within labor policies, fiscal incentives policies, and they really need an integrated approach. This is a bit the sense of the first 2 slides I'm using. Local authorities are the best.
Sorry, Francesco, we are not seeing it in full screen. Can you please share it in full screen?
I'm actually having it in full screen on my laptop.
Okay, I don't know how to have this. Okay, continue,
Wait,
please.
I'll try to.
Sorry.
Go again. Hope this time is working.
Let's see. It shows like two parts of the screen, but I think it's readable. Well, let's keep on otherwise.
Yes, sorry for the technical issues. But in any case, so local authorities, our approach is considering local authorities as the cornerstone of local policies, especially because they can act as bridges with many different leverages to promote waste prevention policies. And these leverages can act both on the demand side and the supply side. So competencies of local authorities goes from promoting behavioral change to providing infrastructure and support to sustainable and circular business model, and also to set and help fiscal frameworks that are at the base of to promote sustainability. Still, what I would like to highlight is that procurement has to be considered as one of the tools of local authorities on the road to circular economy. Between planning, pay-as-you-throw system, and local taxes, green public procurement should be really considered as one of the tools to be integrated in wider policies. And local authorities policies can and should cover all the phases of life cycle of products and processes, from use to design of product and materials, from the raw materials to the use of recyclables, as Veronica already mentioned before. To introduce the topic of public procurement, 2 key considerations, even if they are mostly EU-based. They are coming from a 2017 document of the European Commission. First thing is all procurement is a huge leverage for sustainability. It covers 14% of the gross product in all the European. And still, especially in Mediterranean countries, here we are referring to North Mediterranean countries, the use of most economically advantageous tenders criteria are widely spread. You can see different behaviors in the EU 28 states, but still, with exceptions of Italy and Slovenia, which are kind of good performance, the North Mediterranean side of EU countries are still very much connected to using only economical criteria in public procurement processes. Let's move to a couple of definitions. The first one is from the European Commission on circular public procurement. I leave you read it, but the principle is that to move away from the take, make, waste economic model and to procure in accordance with the criteria of sustainability, it requires consideration of long-term impact of each purchase, including cost of services and product over the entire life cycle. We will come back to the life cycle concept. Circular public procurement, it emphasizes the role of public authorities, the role that they can play in supporting transition towards circular economy, and at the same time, it emphasizes the role of an innovative network and the texture of SMEs that can enact sustainable business models compatible with environmental criteria. One of the pillars of circular procurement is life cycle costing. Here we can see from the 2014 directive of the European Commission how they push member states to apply life cycle costing criteria in public procurement. Life cycle costing shall, to the extent relevant, cover parts of all the following costs of life cycle of a product. So we are not considering anymore how economical is an offer in itself in the acquisition of products or service, but we have to include calculation on use, maintenance, and collection and recycling at the end of the life of the products we acquired. The second concept connected to this is that about environmental externalities linked to the product. This is pretty more clear in EU countries, especially because the monetary value of environmental externalities can be determined and verified. This is strictly linked to fiscal frameworks. So when polluter pays principle is applied, we have measurable monetary value of environmental externalities, and this is to link public procurement will never be complete if it's not integrated or connected with a wider fiscal framework, both at the national then at the local level on waste, as an example. We had a few analyses by the Interreg Med Green Growth community about which are the main challenges and opportunities connected to circular public procurement in the Mediterranean area. The first one is the limited integration between environmental and economic criteria and the limited application of the life cycle cost methodology, because it requires some effort, especially in inception phases of procurement processes. There are few other key criticalities or challenges, like vendor lock-ins, especially for cities. So when public authorities get used on or get dependent on a specific vendor for a product or service, and they struggle in updating the way to procure or to have more open procurement processes. Same things reverse side. So we have a city lock-in for vendors. So some vendors, they become dependent on a particular city for the provision of products or services. And both of these processes can slow down innovation of procurement processes. Last point is about lack of awareness. So among public authorities and also among SMEs about opportunities of environmental innovation. Key concept behind this is that really we have to start from the consideration that the lowest price as an award criterion is not always the best value to cost criterion we have if we consider life cycle costing. Some monitoring indicators, just to between others, the European Commission provide them very much of them, but what we have from the Med Green Growth community can be kind of exemplary. We have to look at the share of public tenders that use green criteria rather than only economical criteria. We have to look at the share of procurement processes including life cycle cost. And then we have to look also at the private side, so which is the number of transnational innovation cluster who receive support, which is the number of operational instrument that local public authorities put in place to support innovation of SMEs, promoting eco-design, giving fiscal incentives to sustainable business models, and etc. And the number of enterprises which receive also non-financial support in terms of technical assistance, raising awareness, training, and capacity building to SMEs. And this is a reciprocal process because the knowledge of the market is the key instrument to promote sustainable public procurement. Let's dive in some local stories to give some concrete examples. The first one, I like this very much because it relied on a very huge stakeholder engagement process, and it wasn't a big investment from the administration who performed it. We are talking about the Regione Sardegna in Italy. In 2009, they started the overall regional action plan for green public procurement, integrating EU direct funds through a LIFE project and regional development funds. What I would like to focus your attention on now is about catering and refection services. So basically schools, health and education services, which are in any case quite a big market because we are talking of roughly 60 million euro per year. What the process set up by Region Sardinia was quite exemplary. They started with a market observation and the stakeholder engagement process involving all actors on the value chain, on the food value chain, from local food producers to teachers of schools to operators in schools and hospitals. And even before developing a set of minimum environmental criteria for public procurement, which then became mandatory, they started by developing a sustainable canteens decalogue. So
10 minutes, let's, Francesco.
How many? 5, let's.
A couple.
Okay, I'll try to run.
Okay.
But here the point is really about engaging stakeholders, promoting awareness, strengthen the relation between different actors working on one specific value chain, and then addressing procurement process while we have a good knowledge of different operators in the market, and when we can have effective criteria for procurement processes. Really, public procurement can improve also waste management, and innovation in waste management is not related to technological innovation. When procurement is connected to targets of efficiency of services, like you can see a picture, this is an example from a small municipality near Rome. The winning tenderer is the one promoting collection of waste in a very small historical town with donkeys rather than with electrical machines. And this was assessed as the best environmental performing bid received by the Artena municipality. If we are in 1 minute, I will just go to this example and then to conclusion. So some quick wins can be made with administration giving the example. We are talking here about Netherlands. They assess the consumption of paper and the costs related to the consumption of paper in the Dutch revenue and customs offices. They set up a procurement processes instead of just for acquiring paper. It was about a service including in-house recycling of paper. So the services, the winning tenderer provided also machines that are hosted in Revenue and Customs Office to recycle continuously the paper used in the public offices. And this led to a clear savings in money for the public administration, and also to a more credible public administration that give an example to a wide range of stakeholders. Same and similar example from the Brussels Environment restaurant. This is the restaurant of the regional administration who procured second-hand furnitures for internal restaurants for public and civil servants. Flying to conclusions. First one is that no solution fits everywhere. We have evolving scenarios for all stakeholders in the economic chain, but public authorities, they are the one who needs to keep building awareness and knowledge of the local markets, because they are the ones who can act as bridges. Few conclusions and a few lessons learned from our experience. First, the basis of public procurement is the need of public authorities, and we should start thinking in terms of functions rather than product. Second one is we have to search for joint interests where we can, and here public procurement can overlap with industrial symbiosis. So where are the opportunities for partnership, both internally as well as within different actors of the supply chain? Third point is about learning by doing and learning by others. There's no need of reinvent the wheel. I would be really glad if we can keep in touch for sharing informations and sets of good practices already published by European institutions and other networks that are active on the topic. I hope we will have the chance to share our contacts. And take time to need to experiment and agree on the risks of moving towards circular public procurement. Some awarding criteria can lead to quick wins, as we've seen in Sardinia on food or with paper. So recycled content rates or the reused furniture in Brussels. Those are quick wins that can help for motivation and set up, test, and experiment processes. And then public commitment demands for vision and long-term perspective. The most important point is that local administration have to know the market in order to understand what can be offered, innovated, or considered as old-fashioned. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Francesco. Sorry to the attendants, because we have not been able to put this whole screen display. We will try for the next one.
We will try for the next one, yes.
Let's talk through the chat and try to fix it for the next one. If there is any particular question or something to make clearer, please let us know now. Although we will have a 15 minutes question and answer round at the end of the presentations. Otherwise, we will continue with Rosaria Tifari, that will talk about waste collection and treatment towards separate collection, separation of waste, sorry. The floor is yours, Rosaria. Thank you very much, and thank you, Francesco.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm going to share the screen. Okay. Okay. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to this session that is going to be structured in two main parts, one related to waste collection and the other one related to waste treatment. And then we are going to give some conclusions. So for the waste collection, I'm going to go first to talk about the steps towards selective separation. So which are going to be the steps that the municipality needs to take when planning a transition towards a full source separation, municipal solid waste management. And then we are going to see some models, some different selective collection systems. This kind of scheme was already showed by Veronica, but I wanted to propose it again just to identify that waste collection is, after waste prevention, the first stage that it's really important to work on to avoid that waste management is only based on finalist disposal. So we are talking about incineration and landfill. So which one are the steps towards a full source separated municipal solid waste management? First, we need to understand what is the purpose of a collection service. Then we need to understand what do we need to manage. We need to characterize the area of study. We need to define the diagnostic of the existing municipal solid waste system. Defining the type of municipal solid waste collection system to use, so to make this kind of selection, and at the end, identify the waste treatment needed for source separating municipal solid waste. The first step is understanding which is the main purpose of the waste collection services. First of all, the first objective is to comply with the legal obligation of the municipalities to provide the services. Then another objective is a sanitary objective that is linked to the need to keep the streets clean or to avoid the spread of disease. Then we have an aesthetic objective to avoid the visual impact of waste. And then ecological objective linked to recovery of resources or preventing pollution. And at the end, we have a social objective. So creating employment, integrated groups at risk of exclusion, for example. Then the second step is understand what do we need to manage. So in this slide, you can see an example of municipal solid waste characterization. So we can see the composition of municipal solid waste, and what was already underlined by Veronica is the fact that organic fraction is the main fraction that is included in municipal solid waste. So is here also that is important to act. The third step is characterize the area of a study. So we need to define general information and waste pattern characteristics and indicators. In this slide, you can see an example of the metropolitan area of Naples. So we can, in this case, we have an area constituted by 92 municipalities. Among the main information that we need to gather, simple information that are really important as a step, is understanding the population at the occupied area, the population density, this is really important, the type of area, so what kind of building do we have, what kind of streets do we have, which is the morphology of the area. And then analyzing and evaluating the following waste pattern. So the total waste generated, the waste production per capita, and the generation of waste per capita per day, and the waste density. So how much is produced in a day within for square kilometer. And then we have the separate collection rate. In this case, in 2019, this value was 47% in the case of metropolitan area of Napoli. The fourth step is elaborating the diagnostic of the existing municipal solid waste management system. This is also an example of the Catalonia region. You can see that we use a diagram flow that are depicting all kind of flows that are going through the different stages of the municipal solid waste. So in this case, we had the 42% of waste generated sent to source separated, and the rest was residual waste. Both source separated fraction and residual waste were sent to waste processing treatment, and at the end sent to incineration and landfill. This kind of picture give you like an holistic approach to check what is happening. So it's not just understand what we need to separate, but what is happening after. So this helps the municipality to understand what is the best option to select. And then collected to, then we need to define, of course, the municipal solid waste collection system. And we have basically three types of collection system. The curbside collection system based on street containers, collection system door to door, and a mix of both systems. The last steps towards selective separation for a municipality is having an overview of the waste treatment plants. So glass, paper, packaging will send to sorting facility for being then recycled. And then bio-waste is sent to biological treatment, that could be anaerobic digestion or composting plant. And residual waste that in the best scenario is sent to mechanical biological treatment or in the worst scenario is sent to landfill and incineration. I'm talking about worst scenario, considering the impact, the environmental impact. So, but let's go to see more in detail the municipal solid waste selective collection system. First of all, we can separate. Let me check if I can move this. Okay, we can have like a sort separated collection system classification according to waste fractions that are separated. We can have a traditional model based on 4 fractions, then a model with 5 fractions. You can see organic fraction, glass, paper, cardboard, light packaging, and residual waste. I would like to underline the difference that I prefer to use here, defining the mixed waste and the residual waste. When we talk about mixed waste, we are not separating organic fraction from the rest, let's say. But in the case of residual waste, it's kind of mixed waste without organic fraction, and of course all the kind of fraction that's still in the residual waste. Then we have the model wet dry and a model multi-material that is putting together paper, cardboard, and light packaging. And of course, we have also other models. I just wanted to mention some of them. Which are the main characteristics of waste collection using containers? First of all, containers are based on public roads. So this implies the definition of contribution areas. The contribution area can include containers for all the fraction. In this case, we are talking about integral contribution areas, or only for some fraction, as in the case of traditional model. The participation in waste selected collection in this case is voluntary, is not compulsory. And well, this is like the majority system in many cities, that is used in many cities. In the following 3 slides, I wanted to just to see to show you like the kind of containers that we can find in the city. So we can have rear loading containers, side loading containers, easy containers, or we can have igloos, boxes, containers, underground containers, and the pneumatic collection. In these 2 last cases, we are giving also an important role to the aestheticism of the city. So that's why we prefer to have this kind of containers to have a lower visual impact. Then we have like a more sophisticated system constituted by containers with the magnetic key based on the radio frequency to identify users, or containers with device for measuring the volumetric and the weight of waste, near field communication containers, or containers that use quick response code. But let's to understand that this kind of containers that the next speaker will talk about more in detail are used when we want to apply a tax according to what is produced by the users, the generators. Then we have, according to the type of container, we can have the type of truck that is needed to work with this kind of container. Then the personnel is different, that you can see. So the workers that need to work regarding the different type of containers, and the time for collection is also different according to type of container. The main characteristics of door-to-door collection system are the following one. The source separated waste are collected directly at the point of the generation. So we are not using any more containers on the street, but the point of generation is really close to the house of the generators. And it is important to follow a pre-stabilized calendar and schedule. And actually, when a door-to-door system starts, the bins for mixed waste are removed. Participation in selective collection is incentivized by a higher involvement of citizens who are directly responsible for the result achieved. In this case, in the door-to-door system, users are identified and monitored, and the anonymity disappears, and the waste tax can be adapted to the actual generation of each user. Then other main characteristic of the door-to-door collection. It can be applied to all fraction or some of them. What is the minimum fraction to which apply this kind of system? We have residual waste and organic fraction. Then the recommended one is considering these three kind of waste fraction: residual waste, bio-waste, and packaging. Glass is the fraction that can most easily be collected in containers. And this kind of collection can be applied to the entire municipality or part of it, and can be applied to household or commercial waste, or just for one of those sectors. It prioritizes the collection of recyclable materials, in the same time reduces the collection of mixed waste, encouraging the source separation, and is reducing the per capita waste generation. Actually, we have a reduction of 10–15%. The collection schedule prioritizes the different selective collections and reduces the collection frequency of the residual waste to the minimal possible. The higher cooperation and the awareness of citizens and the company managing the disposal, the more this system guarantees excellent results. It is important to underline that the door-to-door system can be easier maybe in low-density area, but there are many large cities that are using this type of system, even though they have a high density population. In this slide, and also in the next one, we are going to compare the two systems to try to understand which are the main characteristics, and to give us the an approach, a method to select according to the situation in which we found which is the best collection system. The equipment, the services, and the resources are adapted to different types of waste and users in the case of the door-to-door system, while in the container system, we have a generalist collection, so it's not differentiated as in the door-to-door system. Door-to-door system is not non-anonymous and is fostering the co-responsibility of collection with the citizen, while containers are anonymous and voluntary, are not compulsory. Recycling is the easy thing, let's say, in a door-to-door, just because the reduction of collection frequency of residual waste makes more difficult to keep not separating the waste. So is encouraging the recycling, while in the case of containers, since no one is controlled, not recycling is the easy part. For the door-to-door system, we have a direct quality control compared to the container system. We have a higher collection cost. We can see that the door-to-door system allows control and monitoring for users, while in the case of containers, this can be applicable only if containers have such an identification system that I showed you before. The awareness of citizen is higher in the case of door-to-door system compared to container system, where maybe there is needed a greater where there we need to improve the citizen awareness. Then in the door-to-door system compared to containers, we have a strong differences in terms of impurity. Actually, impurity level of door-to-door is lower compared to the containers. We have a kind of 8% in the case of door-to-door system, and kind of double for the container system. We have less occupation of public space in the case of door-to-door systems, because we don't have containers, basically. The truck can be simpler and cheaper compared to more expensive and sophisticated truck in the case of containers. In the case of door-to-door system, we can have a reduction of odors and cost of cleaning of the public roads, while we have higher costs for cleaning in the case of containers. The fact that we are going to remove the containers in the door-to-door system will create fewer conflicts related to the container location in itself. In the case of a door-to-door system, we need to be really tight in delivering waste, because we need to wait the day when we can deliver that specific fraction, while in the case of containers, we have flexibility, complete flexibility. So waste delivery can happen at any time.
5 minutes left, Rosalia.
Okay. So we are going to have a more efficiency of a complementary collection system and a lower treatment cost compared to more experience, the more experience that the waste management company prefer to have the container system, because it's a kind of used and known system. And then we have higher personnel cost compared to the container system. Let's go to the part of waste treatment. What are the important considerations to consider here? When we think to introduce a municipal solid waste source separation, it is necessary to verify the capacity of the existing waste treatment plant that are able to receive the source separated waste. Otherwise, we need to send this waste outside the area, considering all the costs related to this sending outside of the area of the waste. And if we don't have capacity, enough capacity treatment within the area, we cannot avoid to send to landfill or to incineration our waste that were source separated. As I said before, we have a lower treatment cost in the case of a source separation, because the quality of the waste that is sent to treatment is higher, so we can reduce the pre-treatment cost. And we have to consider that the recovered waste fraction can also be solved, so we have new source of income. The type of waste treatment plant will depend on the specific source separated waste fraction. We are going to focus on bio-waste and residual waste. For the bio-waste, basically we can have on composting or anaerobic digestion plant. In the case of composting, we have the production of compost that can be used in agriculture. This is a kind of a process working in presence of oxygen. And we have, in the case of anaerobic digestion, the process is happening in absence of oxygen, and at a specific temperature, 35 degrees. And in this case, we have the production of digestate that can be transformed into compost to be delivered to agriculture, and biogas that can be used to produce heat and energy. And what I would like to underline here is the fact that according to the quality of what we are going to put inside this waste facility, we are going to have more or less waste, residual waste, let's say, that is sent to landfill or incineration. So if that is why the source separation is so important. For the residual waste, in the best scenario, we have mechanical biological treatment that produce biostabilized material sent to landfill or used as a recovery for soil, and recovered materials or bio-dried materials that is sent to incineration. And also in this case, there are also options to send directly to landfill or directly to incineration. Here in these two last slides, I would like to underline the differences, the link between the separated collection rate and waste treatment capacity. In this case, you can see like the case of the metropolitan area of Naples. In this case, the business scenario, we have a separate collection of 37%. And what about if we want to increase this kind of separate collection? Let's go to the option one. So one, we are going to separate more waste. So we are going to achieve 63% of source separated fraction. In this case, okay, we need to understand that we need to adequate waste process facility. In this case, well, the example was giving us like an increase in recycling capacity, twofold, and an increase on anaerobic digestion capacity with 20-fold. This is in the case
couple of minutes left.
Yes.
Rosaria.
Yes, and the last option is keeping the collection rate and increasing in local waste processing capacity. So we are going to add 2 additional structure elements, but we are going to do that within the same area. So we are not going to externalize the treatment of waste. So conclusion, waste management based on finalist treatment causes serious impact on the environmental and health. So it is necessary to reduce the generation of waste and manage it in the most efficient way. Source separated collection supports in managing waste in a more efficient way. The choice of a separation collection leads to very different results in terms of quantity and quality of separated waste fractions. Door-to-door system achieve levels of selective collection really high, and result in terms of source separated fraction, quality, and waste prevention that is not reached with the other models. Focus on organic fraction is a priority. Selected collection requires an important communication campaign to increase citizen awareness and to increase co-responsibility between citizen and local administration. And to finalize, selected collection is a mean, not a goal. So this is important to check the commitment to quality. Source separation is economically viable, especially if landfills and incinerators bear their true cost. The implementation, and to finalize, the implementation of municipal solid waste source separation and the related waste treatment capacity are strictly connected. That's all for my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Rosaria. I would like to remind the attendants that we have this open question of what is the main concern, issue, challenge you are facing in your municipality. So if you want to give us some feedback about this issue, please write it in the chat, and we will be happy to take stock of your comments so we can use it for a better tailoring of the next sessions. If you have any particular question for this presentation, we can take 1 or 2 questions now. Otherwise, we can take more general questions at the end of the presentations. We will have some minutes for sharing your doubts. Okay, otherwise, the next speaker is Ignacy Puig, that will be speaking about financing waste management. So Ignacy, if you can share your screen, the floor is yours. Thank you very much, both.
Thank you, Sergio. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, perfectly. Thank you.
Okay, I'll be talking about the financial aspects of waste management. In particular, I will present an overview of the different financial instruments and also economic incentives that can be used for waste management. Then I will focus on several of the most important instruments. That's extended producer responsibility, with an emphasis on deposit refund schemes, landfill and incineration taxes, and specifically in those more useful at the local level, which are waste charges, and within waste charges, I will talk about pay-as-you-throw, and also fee and rebate schemes. Okay, this is the overview of the different instruments. You can see there are many arrows up and down. So basically, we have the possibility from the national level to implement several instruments such as landfill and incineration taxes, extended producer responsibilities, eco taxes on products, subsidies, etc. As I said, today we will focus mainly on the local area, and from the local authorities, some of the most relevant instruments are waste charges, with a specific emphasis on pay-as-you-throw, but also some sort of indirect pay-as-you-throw that we know as fee and rebate schemes. This can be applied from municipalities to households and commercial activities, but in some occasions, it's also common that municipalities group themselves in the form of associations of municipalities, and this also can incentivize the municipalities within their area. Okay, I will start this talking about producer responsibility, extended producer responsibility, sorry. Extended producer responsibility is a policy approach by which producers are given significant responsibility for the treatment or disposal of the products that they put into the market. And this has been well established in the world since the 70s and 80s.
Sorry, Ignacy, please keep as close as possible to the mic because the sound is a little bit inconsistent.
Okay, thank you. I'll try to speak louder. So, as I said, EPR is quite common in several parts of the world, and particularly in Europe, where it's common to have it in place for light packaging, waste from electric and electronic equipment, batteries, end-of-life vehicles, and so on. There are many possible alternatives to materialize EPR, but basically we have either collective schemes or individual schemes. In collective schemes, it's basically producers join in the form of producer responsibility organization, and they assume the responsibility jointly. Whereas individual schemes, of course, in this case, each producer assumes the responsibility for the products that they put into the market. And the responsibility can be either material, that means that producers are directly in charge of collection and treatment of the materials they put into the market, or just financial, that means that the administration performs all the tasks and then the producers pay for this. Okay, a particular type of EPR scheme are deposit refund systems. Deposit refund systems apply a deposit at the time of sale of a product, and then this deposit is returned when the product, in this case, for example, an empty container, is returned for collection, reuse, or recycling. It has been especially applied for the use of single-use and reusable packaging. There are around 40 of such schemes in the world. We have a number of them in Europe. And basically, the main two main arguments in favor of this system is that they achieve a very high collection rate, around 80 or 90% of packaging, for example, compared to the typical 40 to 60% of them in regular separate collection systems, and also a very high quality of the products obtained through these systems. This would be the typical example of deposit refund system. In green, you can see the deposit flow, which goes in an opposite direction as the material flows. The materials are put into the market, sold to consumers, and the consumer pays a deposit, which is claimed back when the packaging is returned to the retailer, and then from there materials are collected and ultimately recycled. Okay, another very important instrument are landfill and incineration taxes. As Veronica pointed out, landfill and incineration are in the lower tiers of the waste hierarchy. So it is important that they face the true costs, as they are the more damaging possible way of waste treatment in terms of emissions, leakage, etc. So basically, these landfill and incineration taxes imply the application of the polluter pays principle. That means that the producers have to face their costs. So in this case, this is achieved by means of applying a tax to these treatments, which means that in relative terms, alternatives become cheaper, be it recycling or prevention. This graph is quite interesting. Here we can see for the different European countries the real cost of landfill and incineration taxes. The real cost of landfill, and we can see, and this includes the gate fee plus the possible taxes. And we can see that in the horizontal axis, those countries where landfill is more expensive are those countries where the percentage of landfilling is lower. So whereas on the contrary, where landfilling is cheap, most waste are landfill. So there's a clear correlation between cost and percentage of landfilling, which is a clear case for a landfill tax. And finally, I will go into the question of waste charges and pay-as-you-throw. This is no doubt the main economic instrument at local level. And well, the main objective, the main goal of waste charges is to finance waste collection and management services at local level. They are normally regulated through fiscal ordinances of each municipality, but this depends a bit on the different countries. Again, also the question of cost coverage depends on the countries. In Italy, for example, it is compulsory that waste charges cover 100% of the cost, whereas in Spain, it is forbidden to exceed this 100% of the cost, but you don't have any obligation to cover the costs. This depends from country to country. And these charges can be levied to households and commercial activities. And of course, the main role is to provide resources to finance the services. However, you can also use these taxes to provide incentives to more sound waste management. And this can be done especially by means of pay-as-you-throw, which I will present in a minute. Normally, these taxes are not conceived as pay-as-you-throw, but as flat rates, or maybe in some occasions also depending on criteria such as water consumption, number of residents in the flat, etc., which are not so able to create incentives for waste prevention and source separation. Pay-as-you-throw is really the more advanced way of waste charges. In general, this is quite advanced. In some European countries are well deployed, but in others, such in Spain, we really only have a handful of municipalities that have assumed such schemes. The idea is that household and commercial activities are charged according to the actual volume or weight of waste generating individually by them. This, of course, creates an economic incentive to produce less waste and to separate it correctly. Both waste reduction and separate collection can be incentivized if the generation of the residual fraction is taxed. But there is also the possibility of charging other waste fractions with a high reduction potential, for example, packaging. Pay-as-you-throw charges normally, I would say in vast majority of cases, have a general part, which is either flat, fixed, or independent on waste generation, and then a variable part, which is really the pay-as-you-throw part, which depends on actual generation, but by each individual. Application of pay-as-you-throw leads to a net reduction of municipal solid waste generation, increasing the percentage of separate collection, and also it is a more fair way to distribute costs among the different producers. How can pay-as-you-throw be implemented? Well, there are a number of possible types of pay-as-you-throw. From first thing that pay-as-you-throw needs to do is to identify the users. This can be done, but using street containers with identification. Of course, this is expensive. These technologies are still quite new, but I would say the vast majority of pay-as-you-throw schemes are based on door-to-door collection, as Rosario was explaining just before me. And this can be done by means of assigning individual bins to the different users, or collective bins to an entire building, for example. Once this identification of the user has taken place, then we need an actual measurement of the generation or of the services provided to each user. And in the case of street containers, this can be achieved by means of using chamber systems like the ones in the pictures on the left. This can measure volume or weight. In the case of door-to-door collection, the technology is not so sophisticated, not so expensive. And basically what we can do is to assign or include attach chips to these bins, and then you can count the number of times that the bin is handed in for collection. Or we can use also a prepaid system such as standardized bags. In this case, people have to buy bags. The price of these bags is expensive because they include the charge, and only these bags are collecting. So the municipality is collecting the revenue of the tax by selling these bags, which are the only bags collected. Then we can also have different forms of indirect pay-as-you-throw schemes. Sometimes paid is really difficult to implement, especially if we don't have door-to-door collection. So in these cases, an intermediate option could be indirect pay-as-you-throw. Basically, there are two different options. One is when a municipality pays to a supramunicipal waste authority for the services of waste treatment. You know that in some occasions, just to make use of economies of scale, municipalities join together in associations of municipalities. So when this association of municipalities provide services, treatment services, or sometimes also collection services to their municipalities, then a fee rebate scheme or a bonus-malus coefficient could be applied. That means that those municipalities with a higher performance in terms of, for example, separate collection, would pay less than otherwise, would receive a rebate, whereas those municipalities performing worse would pay an extra amount of money to this association of municipalities. The overall scheme could be defined in such a way that would be neutral in terms of collection. I will go into that again in a minute. Another option would be when a municipality, this only can be useful for big municipalities, when a municipality has sufficient information on the different performance of the different areas of a municipality, for example, districts, neighborhoods, etc. In this case, the municipality can include, again, a fee rebate or a bonus-malus coefficient in their charges. So the charge you are paying depends on the actual performance of the citizens in your neighborhood, in your district, and this can be a way to penalize or encourage people to adopt good practices. As I said, in the case of fee rebate schemes, municipalities working together in associations of municipalities can adopt these schemes. This is a system in which an association of municipalities fosters its members to advance towards recycling and prevention by creating a set of fees and rebate schemes. Those municipalities with poor results would pay an extra fee, whereas the best performance, adopting good practices, would receive a rebate. This could be mathematically defined in such a way that fees and rebates would add up to zero. So the Association of Municipalities has no costs for applying this system. It's only the municipalities that bear different costs according to their results. This would be the mathematical way to define fees and rebates in such a way that they add up to zero, but more than the formula itself, the idea, the interesting thing is the idea, which means that those municipalities performing better than the average would receive a rebate, whereas those municipalities performing worse than the average would receive a fee, a penalization. And the overall sum of fees and rebates would be zero. So the overall cost for the Association of Municipalities is zero. The same idea could be articulated not in the form of fees and rebates added to the tariffs, but in the form of a coefficient multiplying the tariffs. So this would be just a different way of doing the same thing. This was the solution adopted, for example, in the metropolitan area of Barcelona, where during something like between 2012 and 2018, they had a similar system to this one, which was quite successful in activating some economic signal for municipalities to adopt good practices. And this is my last slide, final concluding remarks. Solid financial base for waste management is crucial, otherwise we don't have sufficient resources. And we know that given the tremendous challenges that we have in the coming years, both in the in all countries, I would say, this is crucial to have a sufficient economic or financial base. We have a tremendous amount of evidence worldwide that economic incentives have proven effective in changing the behavior of citizens and companies but also in changing the behavior of public administrations. We have examples from landfill taxes, achieving municipalities to move towards more ecological waste management. We have examples of eco taxes, of pay-as-you-throw, of subsidies, etc., etc., etc. And so it's clear that economic instruments must be part of the portfolio of measures that public authorities need to adopt to move higher in the waste hierarchy. All public administrations can have their role. We've seen national instruments like EPR or landfill taxes, but also local instruments that could be implemented by local authorities, such as waste charges or fee rebate schemes. At local level, certainly waste charges is the most important instrument. This is a crucial instrument to provide financial resources, but we can also use them to implement environmental incentives, not just to raise revenue, but also to implement environmental incentives. And besides, we have fee rebate schemes, which can introduce more direct incentives, maybe not so effective, but very, very easy and very, very efficient and very, very cheap to articulate. It's more a measure that it needs to be put in paper, and then we don't need to change anything in relation to collection and treatment services. Of course, this will come as part of the reaction that municipalities will face. There is a need for coherence between the use of economic instruments and the rest of policies in this area. We know that we have to make changes in collection, in recycling, in treatment, in education, but probably one very important thing is to have an economic framework that drives us in the right direction. Otherwise, any of these advances will be much more difficult to achieve. And finally, before my final slide, is just a couple of resources that we make available for anyone who is interested. One is a guide for the implementation of pay-as-you-throw systems. And a more recent one is a guide on user identification for municipal waste collection in high-density contexts. This also relates somewhat to pay-as-you-throw schemes, but not only. And that would be all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ignacio. I'm sure the financial concern for getting funds for waste management is at the core of each municipality. Concerns about waste management. So I don't know if any of the participants has any particular doubt about this presentation. We will have some minutes at the end of the next presentation, which is the last one, for collecting new questions. I remind you again that we have the chat box open. So if you want to share the main issues, challenges, concerns you're facing in your municipality, please let us know. It will help us to tailor the next sessions for a better fitting with your interest. So since I don't see any hand up, I will give the floor to Francesco again from ACR Plus. Thank you, Ignacio. Thank you, Francesco.
Thanks, Ignacio, and thanks, Serge. I hope this time sharing the screen will work properly. Can you see the whole screen of the presentation now?
Now it's okay. Thank you very much, Francesco, for the fine-tuning of the screen.
Sorry for the technical topic inconvenience before, but I would start with a few interconnection with what Rosaria and Ignazi already presented before. And we will start, we are talking a bit on communication and raising awareness, role and activities for local authorities connected to improvement of waste prevention performances. A first part was really embedded in Rosaria and Ignazi presentation, because those are the communication activities which are part of waste management plans, or which were are supposed to be integral part of waste management plans, and those are to be implemented by local authorities. First of all, because local authorities are the best organization, they are best placed organization to interact with a different level of stakeholders. They have direct access to political hierarchies and decision makers. They have a constant interaction with citizens and civil society organization, and they have the democratic legitimacy to broker between conflicting interests when it comes to dealing with private and public interest. When it comes to communication integrated with the waste management plans, it is worth to mention that communication is a fundamental part of shifting in waste management system, and especially in waste collection system. So each movement towards door-to-door collection, to amendments of the curbside collection system has or should be strongly accompanied by communication activities for clarity on the new requirements of the waste management collection system. But it's not only limited to that, because if Ignazi mentioned the pay-as-you-throw principle to be applied by fiscal instruments at a local level, it is fundamental raising awareness about pay-as-you-throw instruments and its application. We have many cases in around Europe of waste taxes bills delivered to citizens, including information on how much they could have saved with lesser waste production, and building an awareness also on the economical effects and impacts and the cost connected to waste production also at an individual level is very important, and it is an integral part of pay-as-you-throw system, as also for connecting different stakeholders. And here it is referring of the very full texture of NGOs working mainly on the reuse sector. And in this case, public authorities, they have leverages to increase awareness of citizens about eco-parks, local NGOs that are working on reuse and refurbishment of specific fraction or specific waste. And it is it is a win-win solution that has almost no cost for local authorities. In this presentation, last point, integration of different policies. When we talk about communication from local authorities, if we want to cover waste prevention, we have to cover many different policies. And this slide is just to mention that integration of different policy departments and transversal communication activities are the ones needed to cover different impacts and different results on waste prevention. Last transversal slide on the key messages. We are just repeating something that we went through to all the previous presentation, and all communication activities should be focusing on the multi-R approach, the waste hierarchy, and the territorial hierarchy, promoting as much as possible short cycle and short value chains. But now let's focus on 3 examples on different scales that might help us to check how others went through communications experience. The first one is coming from the SWIM project. It is a project funding on DigiNear and ended in 2019. It was covering 9 different countries in South Mediterranean and Middle East. This specific case is about the Rabat Saleh Kenitra region, which had a specific action on preventing and reducing marine waste on the coast with a set of integrated actions. mainly aimed at reducing plastic waste and at reviewing the law on plastic bags, but that was composed and that integrated a key component of communication activities. And they were based on an integrated way to design a communication plan, starting with a very clear identification of the stakeholders to be engaged and how to engage them. Key concepts to be highlighted here. Also, always searching for win-win situation, so building on the existing network of knowledge and experience which is already present, not only at the local level, but often and whenever possible connecting to national or international networks. We'll come to this point very soon. And setting up a really integrated set of actions with combining a top-bottom approach, so having a clear message to share, but combining it with a bottom-up approach, so learning from what's happening on the ground. We can show, and hopefully next week with a representative from the municipality of Rabat, we will talk directly of these actions, but we can see quickly now that the stakeholders engagement and communication actions were quite articulated on different levels and based on 4 key leverages. The first one is about engaging and getting people involved, so getting in touch with local coordinators, NGOs, volunteers, and building up workshops to raise awareness. Then leading by examples and having small environmental actions held by the local authorities, like waste differentiation and reduction in public offices. Another important part was about encouraging, so giving the right signals. And so again, with community awards or subsidized bins or having lowered residential trash bills to encourage reduction of waste production at household level. And then trying to enable and making it easy to go towards waste prevention action. So providing bins and caddies to households or tourism small operators, having a lot of point of sale for information on benefits and a direct telephone hotline. Another key element of the Rabat actions was really about connecting with key initiatives to not reinvent the wheel, because most part of educational and raising awareness materials were already well developed, and there's a very active texture of NGOs already working on citizens' engagement at different levels. Also because building and working with wider networks, it helps to motivate local stakeholders and let them feel part of a bigger home sharing same objectives, and of course also for increased visibility of actions and economies of scales when it is possible to match activities of different NGOs at the local level. Second example I want to show you is on a sector-based approach, and this time we are talking about sustainable tourism. The framework is an Interreg Med project, the Blue Island project. SUR Plus was a partner of this project. It involved local administration from 8 countries and 9 Mediterranean islands in an effort to identify and mitigate the effects of seasonal variation of waste in Med Island. Key phases were about a waste characterization study to understand which are the roots characteristics on the problem, a monitoring of marine litter in 24 beaches in all the 8 islands, and pilot action on raising awareness and Med tourism awareness campaign, which this I want to focus on. The pilot actions were mainly based on raising awareness through different tools and level. In Mallorca, Malta, Croatia, Rhodes, Sicily, and Crete, we have pure awareness raising campaigns. We have placement of new bins and proper labeling of already existing bins in Sicily and Crete, distribution of reusable items which were not aimed at increasing differentiated collection level, but they were mainly aiming at increasing awareness, like reusable ashtrays, as you can see in the bottom right corner in the yellow framework down there in Mykonos, Cyprus, and Malta. Online campaigns and advertisement, they took place at an international level. Cleanup actions, they are always useful to promote engagement of local stakeholders, and then a mobile environmental education center, which was a specific pilot action, but with a specific funding on road. What I want to focus here is that we can and we measure a specific impact of those raising awareness actions. So we conducted in 2017 and in 2019 analysis on the accumulation index of waste in those beaches, and we show that we we can show clear results in most cases about the reduction of this accumulation index in different beaches, especially in the touristic beaches. What knowledge we gained through this project is that in tourism area, the target of tourists is the harder to engage, because it's a floating population, because it's it can't not give the same level of attention to national, regional laws on waste management and on the waste management characteristics. So it requires sometimes a special effort that's going through specific tools. In this case, we had a specific funding from the European Commission, through European Regional Development Funds for this Blue Island project, but connection of stakeholders can create economies of scale to develop small pilot action, especially because if you go to look individually at them, what I really want to insist on is that one of the key points for local administration is to be brave, and a lot of successful communication and raising awareness campaign, they don't require huge financial investment. They require a good integration and involvement of different stakeholders. The last input about this sustainable tourism focus campaign is on how to maintain a political commitment, which is fundamental from local, national administration to keep raising awareness actions high. In this case, through the Blue Island project, we focused on having a charter of commitment that we presented in Sardinia during a local workshop, and then it involved concentrically wider and larger numbers of stakeholders. Maybe you can recognize some of them from MedCities because they are coming directly from Catalonian regional administration in the photo up to the right. Last point I would focus on is on international campaigns, and even this time, SUR+ is directly involved. I would like just to share a few words about the European Week for Waste Reduction, which is an international campaign involving national and regional coordinators all around Europe and beyond. You can see one coordinator in Tunisia down there, but we are really trying to expand the scope to Mediterranean and Middle East countries. Why I'm using this example? Because I want to highlight the advantages and the impact of international campaign. First thing is about the mechanism on how international campaign might work. They are really mixing a top-bottom and a bottom-down approach. So in this case, we have a central steering committee coordinated by SUR+, which is in continuous touch with national and regional coordinators, which communicate to the steering committee, which are the key topics to highlight each yearly edition of the European Week for Waste Reduction. And they are in direct touch with the local action developers. So basically, we have a multi-level and very horizontal international campaign that aims to promote a larger number of waste prevention action at a local level. What does it mean, the local level? And we are having a yearly award of the best performing action. Local level means involving public administration and organizations, NGOs and other no-profit association of the no-profit sector, business industries, schools, and citizens. which performs waste prevention actions, and then they are selected for national and then international awarding. Which are the key points of international campaign, and why I would invite you to get in touch not only with the European Week for Waste Reduction if you intend to be involved, but to other existing international campaign. First of all, they are network of international actors on the subject of 3 Rs, reduce on the waste prevention. So you can find tools for an extensive network of like-minded organizations. Most of all, you will find good practices and ideas to raise awareness on waste reduction, and communication tools to support local initiatives, which are already done, ready to be adapted on a local level, and they can really help to boost recognizability of local organization together with boosting the engagement of local stakeholders. Same concept here. I would just close reminding you that we are having the next edition of the European Week for Waste Reduction in November 2021. You can find in this slide the link to the EWWR website, and I would kindly invite you to join us to take a look of what we already developed and how you can be involved.
Thank you very much, Francesco. Thank you all, and thank all the speakers. This is the last presentation, and we have now some minutes to share your doubts, your questions, any inquiry you want to share with the speakers. So feel free to hand your up, and I will allow you to speak and the video, because at this moment you are all muted. So any questions?
Sergio,
Yeah.
hi. Someone in the chat, Mr. Mohammed, was asking me in private about, I think it's an interesting question, so I share it with you, about the solid waste that is generated during the construction phase.
The construction phase of
a building, for example.
Okay. So I don't know which of the speakers could answer this one, perhaps Rosaria or Veronica, perhaps.
I didn't understand well the question. So is the construction, so the waste generated in the construction phase of the waste infrastructure?
For example, well, I understand that, for example, in the case of private buildings, the municipality, I don't know if they cannot do much, but well, maybe through incentives or something. The question was about what the management of the solid waste generated during, for example, when you are constructing a building, or when you are constructing, I don't know, any public, I don't know, a street, or when you are installing whatever.
Like construction and demolition waste, I guess. Yeah.
But he's asking for the amount of waste generated in construction and demolition waste. Or?
I understand. Well, he didn't specify. I don't know, Mr. Mohammed, if you want to specify a bit more. Yeah, you can unmute yourself.
What we can say is the fact, maybe it could be obvious, but is the fact that maybe we concentrate on municipal solid waste, so waste that is produced from household sector or commercial, similar waste similar to waste produced by household sector. That could be some commercial sectors. But normally this kind of waste, construction and demolition waste, is going through another kind of, let's say, flows. I mean, it's treated not as a municipal solid waste. So maybe this could be the first thing to understand. And of course, I also need to understand which was the specific question.
Yeah, Mr. Mohammed has his hand risen, so maybe you can unmute yourself if you want. You can try. His hand is raising, so now
Okay.
there he is. Oh. Now we cannot hear you.
Oui, bonjour.
Yes,
Bonjour.
now, thank you. So can you specify a bit more on the question?
Ok, merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup. Salut pour tout le monde. Merci de cette opportunité de nous permettre de participer. Merci à MedCity. La question posée était les déchets de bâtiments de construction. Souvent, on néglige ces déchets et représentent des quantités énormes qui sont éparpillées un peu partout dans les communes. Est-ce que vous avez une vision de gestion de ce genre de déchets? Merci.
I think I agree with Mohammed. This like construction and demolition waste is one of the waste stream that is bigger is the largest quantities, I guess, in amount. The treatment, it depends on the place. Construction and demolition waste, as Rosaria said, is not part of what in the standard definition of municipal solid waste is at least in European level regulation is not part of municipal solid waste because it's not the same nature of household waste. What I can say about the treatment is that it follows another path because it's not household waste, and it depends on the place. I cannot say anything else. Rosaria, if you know about the treatment, the specific treatment of construction and demolition waste and the cost. Maybe Ignacy.
Well, maybe Ignacy. Anyway, regarding the cost and the type of treatment, what I know, well, we are not on daily basis. We are not dealing with this kind of treatment. Actually, we deal basically on municipal solid waste. One of the treatment that, according to my knowledge, is done with demolition and construction waste is as a filling material, for example, to build a road, for example. So maybe they have like a pre-treatment to reduce their sites to be reused as a filling material to build new roads or to build some building itself. So this is what I can add from my side. I don't know if Ignacy can add something on that, because I remember that we had an experience in South America regarding this topic, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, well, I'm not really an expert on construction and demolition waste, and first thing to say would be that this is it's a different topic, really. As Veronica said, normally municipal solid waste, the definition of municipal solid waste does not include construction and demolition waste. However, just a couple of ideas from the question of the economic incentives, which I addressed in my presentation. It is very common that there are also taxes on the landfilling of construction and demolition waste, just to incentivize other treatments in the form of sorting and reprocessing the material to use as a feeding material, as Rosaria said, or other uses. And also, I would say that one measure that has really worked well in Europe is the fact that normally some sort of license is needed from the administration to proceed to the construction or demolition of a building. So one instrument that has been working well is charging a deposit at the moment of obtaining this license, which is only recovered back by the person or party doing the construction or demolition activity, if the waste have been treated according to the legislation. That means being brought to a landfill or being brought to a recycling plant. This is a way to minimize illegal dumping. So in the sense that if you don't prove that you have treated your wastes according to legislation, then you cannot claim back your deposit, and of course that's a very powerful economic incentive to make sure that people align to legislation.
Thank you. I just dropped an information in the chat that Francesco just shared to me. So there are some guidelines there, and you can check it if you want. As my fellow said, construction and demolition waste is out of the main municipal waste streams, but also is a very quantitatively important waste stream. So thank you for the question, Mohammed. We will follow with the next question. We have a hand up from Kamun. Please unmute yourself and feel free to share your question, please.
Bonjour. J'ai une question par rapport au mode de collecte des déchets. Comment vous évaluez le taux d'implication des citoyens par rapport au type de tri sélectif à la source à Barcelone? Merci.
مازالت متواصله هي عالميه، راهي مش هي عالميه في الميد سيتي. لا في اوروبا.
Bonjour, est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Yes.
Ok. Par rapport à ma question, c'est comment vous évaluez le taux d'implication des citoyens par rapport au mode de tri sélectif de déchets à la source au niveau de la ville de Barcelone? Merci.
Thank you very much, Kamun. I don't know who of the speakers want to start or have something to say here.
Well, maybe Francesco wants to say something more related to, participation, involvement, and so on. As for the case of Barcelona, but this could be also a general comment. I mean, the direct involvement of citizens, you cannot see it in the treatment phase. You see it in the collection phase. So basically, the main indicator to see whether or to what extent citizens are participating is the level of separate collection. That means the amounts of waste being collected separately, that can be glass, packaging, bio-waste, paper, compared to the total amount of waste. And we know that some systems are more effective than others in achieving the higher collection rates. Another important question relates to the quality of these materials, which also gives some indication on the involvement of citizens, and in the case of Barcelona and Catalonia in general, here the regional administration, the Catalan Waste Agency, is conducting quarterly analysis of the quality of the bio-waste separated by each municipality, which gives an idea of the percentage of impurities of non-organic materials within bio-waste, which is also something which is very dependent on the collection system. But of course, it's also very dependent on the degree of involvement of citizens. So I would say that these two magnitudes, separate collection and quality of the materials, give a good idea of the degree of involvement by citizens. But maybe Francesco, some others want to add something else.
That was exactly the answer I had in mind, because those are the only two monitorable indicators of citizen engagement. Maybe we can try to shift, but we are going to complex indicators to involvement of SMEs and other local actors. So especially when it's connected or with organic fraction and the local composting, or with the reuse sector. Another good indicator would be about the spread of NGOs working and other organizations or small privates working on the reuse. But all other indicators we are having now a more circularity, less carbon campaign. We are trying to analyze the carbon footprint of pre-waste stage and material flows in local authorities, the complexity when it comes to after the end of life. So if we talk about waste management, it is relatively easy to get comparable data. When we talk about pre-waste, we have a huge complexity in different data to be collected and analyzed, from source of materials, raw materials, processing, and distribution flows.
Okay, thank you. We should be, we're about to close the session, but if there is, we can take one more question if anybody wants to contribute with some other questions, doubts. See any hand up now?
Hello? Merci. Hello?
Yes, Sedin, I can hear you. Thank you very much.
Merci. Je peux en parler? Bonjour à tout le monde.
Yes.
Bonjour à tout le monde. Bon, j'ai voulu intervenir dans ce sens. À propos, est-ce qu'il y a une stratégie de valorisation des gestions domestiques des déchets au niveau domestique pour comme le compost, pour régénération des déchets qui peuvent être utilisés à l'échelle foyer, à l'échelle domestique? Est-ce que vous m'avez saisi ou pas? Ça veut dire certains foyers ont des déchets quotidiens qui peuvent être réutilisés même pour en tant que compost dans leur jardin et surtout dans leur utilisation quotidienne et ménagère. Est-ce qu'il y a une stratégie dans ce sens pour réduire le maximum des déchets à la charge des localités collectives? Est-ce que vous m'avez compris?
Thank you, Ezedin. We have now understood the question, and I don't know who of the speakers, perhaps Veronica, do you want to give an answer to this one?
Well, I think there is home composting. I think
the mic, please. You have the mic. Put the mic on.
Sorry. Yes, I think maybe Rosaria can explain, but I think it's home composting. I mean, there's also a lot of guidelines on home composting. I mean, how to deal with the organic waste generated at home. I think also Anne did a study on home composting in Catalonia a few years ago. Yes, there are guidelines, and also, yes, I think Rosaria can explain, or Ignacy, what...
Actually, there are guidelines on home composting available at European website. There are, like, I remember to have seen like fact sheet explaining in detail the techniques. And also there are different kind of experience. I remember some experience in the north of Spain, in the Basque Country, for example. There are many municipalities that are using this kind of waste collection in a specific area. So in the home composting solution. So I think these are available.
I think it's a good point, because I mean, as you said, it's as we saw in the presentation, organic waste is one of the main contribution of municipal solid waste, and home composting it's the cheapest option to deal with, because you avoid the collection. So it's composted on site, so you skip the cost for the municipality for the collection that is borne by the municipality often, but also the treatment cost also paid by the municipality. It's a prevention strategy also, I would say. I don't know.
What makes a difference if home composting is not only adopted by a low percentage of people, but it's made compulsory for everyone, which is something which is not always possible, but maybe in small municipalities or in low density areas it is, because in that case that allows you to avoid altogether the collection. And of course, bio-waste collection is the one with highest frequency if you do it separately. So avoiding the entire waste collection of bio-waste, it's a massive saving. In that sense, I would recommend the experience of the Revitaliza program in Galicia, in northern Spain, in the area of Pontevedra, particularly, because they are in that area. They are doing exactly this. They are making it compulsory for everyone to have home composting or community composting in some cases, even in high density areas. And that has allowed them to remove entirely waste collection of bio-waste with significant economic savings, of course.
I think that is also important to underline that this could be nice also to have an idea of where the compost produced at local level can be distributed, because this was one of the main problem against home composting. So we are going to have this compost produced locally, but where we are going to use it. And if we are talking about an area where the citizens itself can use the compost produced in their gardens or in their land, of course this can be easier. It's an easier solution.
Thank you very much. So, Gemma, I don't know if you want to add or to invite the attendants to the next session now.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind you all that this is a part of 3 sessions. Next session will be focused on real examples from the north and the south of the Mediterranean of municipalities who have implemented actions to enhance the solid waste management. So that's it. I would encourage you all to be there, and I hope to see you there.
Okay, then we close this session. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you to the speakers. Thank you to the attendants, and see you next week, same time, same place. Thank you.
No, same place, no. The link is different.
Same place, Zoom. I refer.
Yes, Zoom, yes.
See you in Zoom. Different link.
Different link.
Different link.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Merci tout le monde.
Merci.